Hello and welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today is this super awesome, multi-talented Jah'Mila. Thank you so much for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Thank you, Israel, for having me. Excited to be a part of your program.
I've been dying to make this happen. But first off, I want to start with COVID happened March 2020. Like, were there some things you had planned for summer festivals, things like that? What are some of those things, and how did you handle them being, pushed back or canceled?
Yes, that is a great question, and a question that has been posed to us a couple of times before. 2020 started on a very high note for our band. For the very first time, we got to travel beyond the Canadian borders and we went back to Jamaica, the birthing place of reggae music, to not only pay homage to the genre and the people who were instrumental in making it as amazing as it is, but
Mhm.
also to create content. So we made videos and we recorded at Tough Gong Studio. It was a great experience. Yes,
Whoa! Nice.
the whole plan was that not only would we explore where reggae is today in Jamaica, but we'd also have some authentic recording that involved also the reggae legends who are still alive in Jamaica. And the plan was to
Mm.
come back here and share it and kind of ride the wave of that content for the entire 2020.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
and we had shows booked up until September of last year, and
Damn.
by the 25th of March last year, they were all cancelled.
When did you go to Jamaica though?
We went on the 1st of February 2020 and we spent 10 days. So
Nice.
shortly after we arrived here, that's when the lockdown happened.
When you guys were there was like, talks of like, hey, people need to come back. Did that happen then?
It did definitely. I remember us we had already had our tickets booked from the latter part of 2019. And so we had some concerns as the date draw closer because we knew that there was something not right going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because on the day when we went to the airport together as a team, we all had our hand sanitizers and we didn't have a mask yet, but we were serious about trying to avoid it at any rate. In
Yeah.
hindsight, though, looking back, we're very happy that we took the chance.
Right, 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 right. So, then I guess, everything just shut down. How did you and the band react to that? How did you handle it?
So, as you can imagine, when we came back, it was a bit of a shock, and no one was quite sure in my team. And other musicians that I know as well were kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? A lot of our livelihoods were affected because not everyone has another job in addition to music. A lot of people are depending on music as their main source of livelihood. And
Yeah.
that was it was very disheartening for a lot of us. What we did though is that we used the content, we did some live off the floor recordings, and we started submitting it to a lot of the events that were going virtual. The
Mm.
first one being the NSCC live performance for their arts program went virtual. And it was cool to be able to show content that was actually recorded in Jamaica, reggae music, and to be able to show it to the students there. And
Mm.
we used this content a bunch of times because lucky for us, we had it ready. It was new, it was fresh. So
Mm-hmm.
it really positioned us in a very strong way last year to be able to use the opportunities as they were virtual, right? Most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you have any of those experiences where it's live but virtual, where you actually play live? Did you have any of those performances?
We did. So, Full Circle Festival, big up Kim and the entire team at Full Circle. They've been trying to get our band to play since 2019 summer. And last year was supposed to be the time when we made it happen. And of course, it was canceled. So
Mm-hmm.
they were the first organizers who mentioned or suggested that if we were comfortable, we could get together as a team and record live. So we have that video on my YouTube channel. It's Jah'Mila Full Circle 2020. And it would have
Nice.
been our first time trying to do that sort of format.
How was it though? How was that experience for you guys? Did you have any preparation for it, or you just showed up and recorded?
just showed up and recorded. A bunch of our team members were a little nervous about coming together for rehearsals because they had vulnerable members of their family around
Right,
them, you
right.
know. Um, but we managed to, by the time Full Circle came around, we managed to move beyond a lot of our discomforts, and we came up with a COVID plan that if you are not singing, you'll wear your mask. And that we'll set up the instrumentations as far away from each other as possible. And we set up outside, which gave us a lot more fresh air and a
Ah,
lot.
nice, nice,
So that
nice,
was
nice.
cool.
Yeah,
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 feel free to check it out, guys, if you get a chance on Jah'Mila Music on YouTube. You'll see our full circle performance from last year.
yeah. Awesome. Check it out. So let's now go way back. Like, growing up, how did you fall in love with music? How did you get into music?
Mhm. You know, that's such a great question. I can't remember a time in my life when music wasn't there right beside me, whether it's singing in church or being a part of choirs at school and any other sort of social, event. It always involved music for me. I didn't grow up with my father. He was a traveling musician, so of course I was
Uh,
staying with the maternal side of my family. Was
mm,
more, Christian rooted, Christian minded, and a more stable sort of space to raise a young lady. But while my dad was traveling and making his contributions to the genre, um,
mm.
whenever he was around, though, I always got an opportunity to spend those times with him. And it was strange because I'd be like, my father isn't like the rest of the other dads that I know, He's smoking all this weed and he's playing all this music. But as I grew older, Israel, I started to understand just how incredible his contribution has been to the genre. And that
Mm,
I understood that even though I didn't have him all the time when I was younger, he was out there making a name and building a legacy, not only for me, but for all my other siblings. So,
mm,
yeah, as you grow up, you understand. And then the people you call uncle and the people that you hang out with, you realize how incredible they are, right? The Sly and
mm.
Robbies of the world, these kind of people. So I'm excited for and I'm really grateful for this type of exposure.
So you grew up in Jamaica, right?
Hmm.
How was that experience for you?
Well, when you grew up in a place, you don't know anything different. So
Right,
it's your
right,
base level. So I'm a
right.
country girl, I come from up in the hills of St. Anne, quite close to where Marcus Garvey would have come from. To give some people who might not know the geography of Jamaica, to give them some reference point. I'm from
Mm,
St. Anne, and that's also where Bob Marley is from as well. So the little town I'm from is called Brownstown. And
okay.
yeah, I grew up with my grandmother and my mother, and we had chickens, and I had a goat, and I went to church, and it
Right.
was very, very simple living. But for me, it was my entire world. And then,
Mm.
as you grow up, you realize that the world is so much more big and has so much more to offer.
Right. So, you'd hang out with your dad and then like this is just your life. Um Meeting all these super talented legends, right?
Yes.
And then like what time did you realize, oh wait, these are not just like, your everyday people. Like at what age did this realization come to you?
Well, the realization came to me around the time when Lauryn Hill dropped Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
That
And also,
album though.
I know. So that's
Woo!
the thing, because I was now in high school at this time, still
Okay.
living in the countryside, and understanding that my dad is an incredible musician and we could understand each other because I also love music. So he loves to hear me sing as much as I love to hear him play. But in
Mm,
terms of the the level of his contribution to music is when he got his first couple of Grammys that I was aware of. He had some Grammys before, but like the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill bunch of Grammys, those were crazy because he played on that album. And
mm.
it's like you're in high school being like, oh shoot, my dad's on that album, and it's a weird thing. No, because I don't consider myself to be like rich or super connected or anything, but it makes me proud to have this sort of legacy.
Mm,
I have really
mm.
big shoes to fill, Israel.
So, for people that might not know him, do you want to share a little bit about him and like what he in what way contributed?
Oh, absolutely, sure. So my dad's name is Earl China Smith. And he has been playing guitar since he was a teenager. He started playing with a band called Soul Syndicate. But quite shortly after, everyone would realize how incredible he is as a musician and a person. He started playing with Bob Marley, recording with him at the age of 17. And since then, he has been with the Marley camp all the way up until Junior Gong, Damon Marley. He was the musical director of Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. A lot of his most He does a lot of work, not only with the Marley family, with maybe any any reggae act you can think of. But outside of that, his most international notable work would be his work with Lauryn Hill, his work with Amy Winehouse, his work with Joss Stone, and his work
Mhm.
with the Marley family for sure.
So that will explain how you and your band got to record in Tough Gun.
No, not really. You just kind of go
Oh,
on the website and book the time. But
really?
yeah, you do. You just book the time. But what makes it different is that when you go to Tough Gong, like when I go to Tough Gong, it's a place that I've been going for all my life.
Since you were a kid,
Yeah,
right?
so the
Right, right.
reception would be different, you
Right, right,
know?
right, 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 right. So, you grew up that way and then you're doing this thing in the choir,
Yeah.
expressing yourself. At what time did you start writing your own songs?
Okay,
And
so
what type of songs were they?
okay, sounds good. Thank you. I love that because a lot of people pigeonhole me into the reggae box, which I have very high loyalty to the genre, and
Mm,
and it has given me exposure that I would never know otherwise. But
mhm.
I love R&B and I love jazz music. I love soul music, you know? And I think they all have roots in African music anyway. So
Mhm,
but when I just started to write, I was influenced by the popular acts of the day, you know, the Beyoncés, you know, the Faith Evans of the time. And so I was writing a lot of soul songs and R&B songs. And my dad and my repertoire, so if you should just hang out with us and we start singing, it would quite rarely be reggae songs because just like him, we like to explore the different
mhm,
kinds of progressions and the different kinds of song structures. So I was writing a lot of soul songs. But then I went on tour for the very first time at 21 with the Wailers, Aston Family Man Barrett, and my sister was the other background vocalist, Maria Smith.
oh,
Yeah, so that was fun. And then it wasn't until I did this one tour, because you know about reggae when you're living in Jamaica, but when you go on tour and you see how it affects
people.
people,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a different thing, because to you, it's like you've been drinking this water since you were 12, right? But seeing how it's affecting people is a different thing entirely.
oh, you take it for granted when you have it around you all the time.
Right, right, right. Cause like the water is right there. I can just take it from the top, right? But when you see
Exactly.
how people reacted, it's like your eyes open. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, no worries. And so I went on a US tour with Aston Family Man Barrett and the entire Wailers team, or I should say the reconstructed version of it, with some
Mm-hmm.
original members and some new members as well. And I have to say that was a life changer for me
Mm-hmm.
because I really understood. You hear stories about how reggae music changed people's lives and how the type of positive vibration that it brings about into the world and into people's communities. And it doesn't matter where they're from, to hear people singing back these songs word for word, it kind of touch your heart. And then you say, oh, okay, that's the kind of effect you want to have on the world.
Mm,
And it is my
mm,
legacy. So why not? You know, it's okay to try to be Beyonce, but how's about being Jah'Mila from Jamaica? Maybe that might
mm.
work.
Yeah, yeah. So was that when kind of that switch flipped and you accepted this is me, and then you kind of went down this path?
Well, yes, yes and no. I started to appreciate reggae music more, but I was still working a full-time job. So after that tour ended, I went back to my corporate job in Jamaica. And then a couple of
What were
years
you
later,
doing then?
Oh, okay. I was in HR. I was working as a workforce manager at a
Oh my god.
telecommunications
How many
company.
people did you have to fire?
Well, the firing decision never always rests with me, but I could
Okay.
recommend it.
All right, all right, all right.
Yes.
So you're doing HR, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's almost like I could no longer be comfortable in
Mm,
my sit at my desk job, knowing that there was a world out there waiting to hear music and a world that was so easily accessible by me, you know?
mm,
Like it was easy for me to just step into that world with my brother, my sister, my family. We're all kind of, that is our reality, on my
mm-hmm,
paternal side for sure.
mm.
So I quit my job and I was like, let's try to do music
Wait,
for
wait.
one.
It wasn't like was it easy to make that decision quitting your job?
It was
Wow.
not easy at all. And it got really hard before it got better. Israel, you're probably one of the first interviews I've done where I'm going to actually tell you how hard it got.
Mm,
I quit my job at Digicel in Jamaica and I cut all my cream hair off. I have my perms and my hairpiece and the curls, and I cut it off and I started to grow my dreads. And without just like running after the opportunities in music, I tried to understand the Rastafarian culture a little bit better because I figured if I understood it more, then not only would I be able to deepen the connection with my dad and all the other Rastafarians that I would have become close to over the years, but I
mm,
would understand the music more. And so when I sing it, it would be coming from a different place. And Israel
mm.
so said, so done. I haven't been closer to myself or closest to my authenticity as a person as I have when I was a practicing Rastafarian woman.
Mm.
People from Digicel, my former corporate job, were like, "Oh, have you seen Jah'Mila? She looks like she's going crazy because I cut my hair." No, but little did they know I was reading more books and I was
Mm.
sitting with myself more and I was thinking and operating and behaving on a higher spiritual level. That's how I felt. I lost 55 pounds, Israel, just by virtue of the fact that I changed my eating. I'm telling
Wow.
you what happened. And it was really bad at first. And then it's almost like the Most High opened up an opportunity for me to go on tour. And I was
Hmm.
touring consistently for over 3 years.
Did you
Going,
form a band right away?
no, I went on tour as a background vocalist for a number of bands. One of them was a band in California called Groundation. Shereen Anderson, I was working with her, and by virtue of working with her, I got to work with Sly and Robbie a bunch as well. I
Hmm.
toured with Junior Kelly. I toured with a number of people. I toured with Jesse Royal. I toured with Janine, all in the capacity of a background singer, though.
Mm.
You know?
In that, you know what I used to think like, and so I watch a lot of Saturday Night Live, right? I can't remember these artists, but sometimes you listening to the background singer, because they're like singing and they're answering the chorus or whatever,
Yes.
but you can just hear, okay, wait, this person, or like, I don't know if I'm correct or right, but you can just kind of sense that there's more to that background singer. Like, is that ever
Yes.
a thing? Or am I just crazy and just like, overthinking things?
Yeah, you're not crazy at all. I'll tell you, quite selfishly, I love the background singer role. It's kind of an easy cop out because you get all of the exposure without the accountability.
Right, right. Right, because you can be like, holy shit, that person can sing. Like, because like, you hear when the artist is singing, and then you can hear when that person is singing because of like the intonation or how they are moving to the music. I'm like, oh, that is that person's voice. Holy shit, that is that person's voice.
Absolutely. And I always loved the craft because I grew up and saw my big sister and my big brothers doing it. And they've toured with Shaggy, Jimmy Cliff. They're pretty established, far more established than I am as a background singer. And
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't gone on to start bands and such.
Mm-hmm.
So when I moved to Nova Scotia now, and
Wait, so what was I guess, the push behind the move to Nova Scotia?
well, my mom has been living here for about 13 years. So she was living here before me. She came here as a nurse for work opportunities. Then my sister came shortly after and started going to Halifax West. So that was how it kind of started. And then I started visiting whenever I wasn't on tour. I would use the opportunity to come and visit, my mom's new home, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my mom don't go anywhere, She boring. I hope
But
you
you
get
know
to.
what? It's good to have that balance between this dad that does all these things and this mom that is super grounded. So you have these two sides, you know?
Absolutely. Super stable. But when I came here, I wanted music. I was here for an extended period of time, maybe a month or so. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted music. And I remember jumping on the number four and asking the bus driver, where is Agricola or something like this? Why? Because I heard that there was an open mic um, run
Oh,
by a man called Ben Kaplan.
okay.
I
Okay.
would I would later learn that Ben Kaplan is one of the most talented Nova Scotians ever. But I went there all by myself, took the bus down there, and then I met a little firecracker called Roxy.
Mm.
Roxy and the Underground Soul Sound. And we sang for a little bit out back. We had a smoke, we had a drink, and then she was like, I have a show coming up, you should come. And she started integrating me into the music community because she realized that I love music and that I was also musical. And the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I met my
So you
husband.
say with Roxy though, and then how do you form your own band, right? Wait first, because like by now you're just doing this background thing. When did you like want to now take the responsibility being in front, right? Because
Okay,
you're back there enjoying your music and you don't have to
yeah.
worry about everything else. But now you're like, okay, everything is gonna stop with me. What made you do that switch?
It's a mixture between growth and desperation, and I'll explain it to you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's desperation because after meeting Roxy, I started a relationship with someone who was playing with her that night. And over the next couple of years, we stayed in contact and we decided that I was going to move here. I wasn't touring as much as I was in Jamaica, so I felt like it was the right time to make the move. And we
Okay.
got married. So I'm married to a Cape Bretoner currently.
All right. All right. All right.
Right, exactly. His name is Adrian Dunn. And that's one of the main reasons I moved here on a more long term, more permanent basis. But
Mm-hmm.
when I came here, there wasn't a lot of music well, no lies. There was a lot of music,
But not your type of music.
not a lot of reggae music.
Yeah.
And that gave me an opportunity. I connected with the few reggae music people that were in the city through Charles Austin. He connected me with the Dub Cartel and Andrew Branch. And so I started to know who these people were. But I wanted to bring my own flavor to it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I had a responsibility. So the desperation was like, okay, where's the reggae music? And then the growth is like, okay, this is your opportunity to stop being so comfortable and to
Mm.
step into your power because you know you can do
Mm-hmm.
it, right? So it was scary at first, but it's
Right,
something that
right,
needed
right.
to
I was just
happen.
about to say, wasn't that scary? But thank you for answering that. Yeah, because I mean, I can imagine was it scary, right? So anyway, but you do it, and then what I guess what was the process? What was the timeline to building this thing you've built?
For sure. We started rehearsing, I want to say April of 2017. No, 2018. No, we started rehearsing April of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started rehearsing, it was at Alec Fritz's home. Now he was running for a long time Sound System Sundays, so he had like a where you could go and a meeting on a Sunday evening where he put up the sound systems in his basement, and you could go and enjoy reggae music. So he was happy to host us, and
Mm.
we just rehearsed for about a month, and then we were discussing a cool space to be able to launch, for want of a better word. And then I read somewhere that that same April, there would have been the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote.
Oh,
And I was like, that's interesting.
yeah, yeah.
That's super interesting. And also, I wanted to also highlight, like myself, because now knowing how hard it is to keep a band together, trying to make it happen, I started looking around at the other female musicians that were around in the city. You know, you
Mm.
have Karen, Cameron, which is an all girls band. We have Like a Motorcycle, Jesse Brown, Erin Costello, Roxy herself. And I was like, there are a lot of really powerful people. There's a community of us. And imagine if we all came together and supported each other. So I did a show that was aimed at empowering female musicians and artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the anniversary of women's rights to vote would have been a really key time to do that. And that was our very first show. And we had
Dope.
a really nice time. We had a poet, Maria Pelly Smith, that was
She's
there as well.
amazing.
She's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cameron was there as well. It was quite something.
Okay, so let's rewind just a tiny bit, right? You like, how do you select the people in your band, right?
Mhm.
And like, did you have any, I guess, issues with coming up with a name, and like who was writing the songs, and like kind of what was whose responsibility in the band?
Okay, great. I wish we had that all written down on a page when we started, but we didn't. I'm going to be absolutely honest, full
Wow.
disclosure.
Holy
Um,
shit.
I didn't choose a band Israel. These
Right.
guys all showed up for me, every single
Wow.
one of my seven musical family members. I'm going to use this opportunity to name them out.
Mm-hmm.
Alec Frith, from the very beginning, has allowed us use of his attic to be able to rehearse. He has been a driving force in the creative direction for the band, and he
Mm.
showed up. I did not have to call Alec. As a matter of fact, when I don't have rehearsals, Alec calls me. He's like, "What? So what about rehearsals?" We have Richard McNeil. He's responsible, especially now in the pandemic, for doing a lot of the recording work. So he hosts my creativity. I write a lot of the songs, but I don't play. So I depend on not only Richard and Alec, but the entire band to help me with giving me that cushion that to facilitate my creativity. And
Mm-hmm.
Richard is a key part of that process. Charlie stepped into the band most recently because my husband had to take a step back. He had some personal issues that he was dealing with, and so I was short of a guitarist. And Charlie stepped in almost immediately. What Charlie came with though is incredible because Charlie is a videographer and
Right,
works in
Charlie
film.
Benoit. His
Exactly.
photos, oh my god, his photos are crazy.
He is insane.
Yeah.
He's incredible not only in his talents, but also as a person. Very reliable, someone you can count on. So
Mm,
Charlie has been there, not only giving us the guitar vibes, the guitar, but also helping us to have our visuals and our content in order.
mm.
Christine Kovacevic, I invited her to come check out the band one day. Just come hear how we rehearse. And she's never missed a rehearsal since. Yeah, Andrew Branch, I have to say, came into the band most recently as well, after Christine. No, actually, before Christine and Charlie, but after the first core set of members had started, he came
Mm.
shortly after, and he came and he was like, "I have a band, but I want to be a part of this band too." And those are the energies, the energies where people
Right,
show up and they don't leave, and I love that.
right,
Paul Keddy,
right.
my drummer, Paul Keddy has a family and a full-time job, but is always there. And we have a silent member as well, Teddy Skiffington, who is over there in Toronto. He was our very first drummer before Paul Keddy came on our team, and he
Mhm.
was very instrumental in starting the band because he called me and he was like, "A bunch of us guys are gonna go jam, and we were thinking if you wanted to come." And I'm like, "Sure." And they were like, "Maybe you could have your own band."
Right, 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 right.
So those are my guys. I love them all. I love them all deeply.
So, like you mentioned, you played with your husband. Like your husband was part of your band. How is
Mhm.
that, though? How does that work? Like you met him. I'm guessing the music brought you together. Got married, and now he's playing your band. Like, is that where do you have this situation where it's like, how do you separate? I guess this is the question. How do you separate work and
Mhm.
like us?
That's a great question. It's not easy. Um, but if you have two emotionally mature people who are able to control themselves, who are not driven by power and that deep-seated need for authority or control. I
Mm,
feel like it can definitely work. We worked
mm.
quite well together for a long time until he had some personal issues that he had to deal with. And
Yeah.
he had to not only drop my band, but a few other engagements so that he could think a little more clearly.
So you said he's from Cape Breton, but you guys live in Halifax, or okay,
Yeah,
great,
we live in
great, great,
Halifax.
great.
Yeah.
I've never been to Cape Breton. I keep saying I'll go, but you've been, I'm guessing, right?
Oh, yeah. Cape Breton is beautiful. And I have to say, it reminds me of the South because Jamaica has that sort of southern hospitality, the music, the people, the vibes, the energy, and I
Mm,
feel like I find some similarities in the Cape Breton culture as well.
mm. So when it comes to your songs, right? I
Hmm.
mean, how do you write them? Like, what inspires you? What drives you to write the songs you write? And how do you go from your head to your paper to working with your band?
Okay, this is a great question. So I have ideas of songs, or you ever have an aha moment, you're walking, and whether it's a quote that hits you the right way, or you have a thought and you're like, whoa, that's profound.
Yeah.
So on this phone, I have about 1,000 voice notes. No, it's true. I capture it because one of the themes that Richard and I have, and I'm going to quote it for you, the vibes are slippery. The vibes are slippery. You see, if you have
Mm.
a creative epiphany and you don't document that right away, it gone leave you.
That is very, 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 very true. That is very true. That is so true. And like, you know what, like, because I write films and stuff, and sometimes like you'll be like a dream, and then I'll be like, okay, when I wake up, I'll remember it, or I'll write it or whatever. If I don't write it right then, it's gone. It's gone,
Gone.
gone, gone,
You
gone.
know,
So yeah, vibes is slippery. I like that. I
the
like that. I
vibe
like
is
that.
slippery. So if you don't capture the vibes, when the vibes take you, it gone.
Okay.
So when
So
I
you get
come
the
to my
vibe on your
sessions,
phone.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I go to my creative sessions. Most recently, my creative sessions have been primarily with Richard McNeil, just because my band is really big. So we don't have the luxury of getting together all the time.
Mm,
So and then I go over a few of the ideas with him, and then he plays me a few of his ideas, and then I'm like, his ideas are mostly instrumentals, the beats, the rhythm. And then we're like, oh, I like that one and I like that one. And he said, well, I like that idea and I like that idea. Usually in an hour or two, we have a demo to work off of. You know,
oh.
I like to write on my book. We have a little black book that we've been using since last year when the pandemic started. And
Mm,
it's cool to flip through the pages because you see Chant Their Names when it was just starting. You see all these songs that we've produced. And we have, since
mm.
last year, produced and recorded over 10 songs.
God damn. And where do you record?
I record in Richard's personal home studio on
Okay.
Windsor Street. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he is my bubble. Yeah.
Whoa, whoa. You mentioned you mentioned the song. And I didn't want to talk about it right away, but I think now is a good time as any to talk about the song, and that's Chant Their Names. Last
Mhm.
year was there was COVID, sure, but there was also this like uprising worldwide with the murder of George Floyd, right?
Mhm.
And people were responding to that in different ways, protesting, online social activism, whatever, whatever. And then I saw these Chant Your Name songs. I was like, holy shit, it's like different, right? It's like, so I guess my question is just talk me through the whole idea of Chant Your Names and then making that the artwork and the video for it and all that. Like, what was it important to put that song out then?
It was very important to me because it was unplanned. No one in our team had anticipated that we would have had this song even 3 weeks before it happened. And I'll
Mm,
tell you what, I watched the George Floyd, the footage, and I was broken. When he called out for his mother, I was broken. I was
mm,
broken. And I could not function. Funny enough, I had a session booked with Richard where we just book a 2 hours or so, and I go over for the sake of creating. And I was
Mm,
like, Richard, I don't feel like I'm in the right mood right now because, you know, and I shared with him why. I was like, I just watched this video and it's
mm,
really, really affecting me. So Richard was like, would you write about that? And I was like, I
mm,
could try. And I was like, where do you start unpacking 400 years of oppression? Where do you start? What's the first line of the song? And Richard said to me, if you could talk to that guy kneeling on George Floyd's neck right now, what would you say to him? And I answered without even thinking about it. I said to him, I'd ask him what he have to say for himself. I want to know what he has to say for himself. And that's the first line of Chant Their Names. After
mm,
we had this conversation, in 1.5 hours, all the lyrics were written. We
mm.
decided we were going to go and ask him, what if you were one of these people? Or suppose this was your son. And what was very surprising to me, Israel, is that we had too many names to choose from. If you know the song, you know the song lists, and basically you're talking to the police officer and you're saying, what if you were Sandra Bland and got a ticket? What if, And it's funny because you shouldn't be able to find so many rhyming names. And I still did not use not even half of them. Do you understand?
The worst part is that Chant Your Name came, but between now until then, you have even more names. It's like it just doesn't stop.
Dante Wright, yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't stop. And so it's like the black community cannot get over one death before another one comes. It's almost like they're trying to break us, like
Mm,
emotionally. There's one thing killing off all of our men, but there's also another part of it that is like, when are we going to get some release? You know what I mean? It has to
mm,
stop with this generation. It has to stop with this generation. And every single person, I said it at all my shows, every single one of us, regardless of our background, our color, our belief system, bears the accountability to make sure that the next generation comes with a different mindset.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a serious thing.
First off, thanks for making that song. And then, like, the artwork that came with it, how did that, was that Charles?
Charlie, yeah. So when I recorded the song, I did that demo the same evening. And then Richard gave me a call. He gave me a call and he said, Jah'Mila, I know we've been working on our album, but I just listened to the song. Charlie listened to it as well. And we feel like we should get it out now. I said, Richard, we don't have a budget. We don't have any budget to do anything like this. And Richard is like, no, I'm going to donate my half of the ownership of this song to charity. And already we have actioned that. He doesn't want to benefit from it, neither do I. Charlie was like, I'll do the visuals. I can't do much for a movement like this, but if I can make this video that will help
Mm,
to bring positive awareness to it and help
mm,
to bring about positive change, then I will
mm-hmm,
do this. And I saw a community of people, Israel, Trevor Murphy, who did the publishing work, well, not publishing, he was a publicist for it, kind of helped to get it out there in the world. He offered to do this. Not a single dollar was spent in the making of Chant Their Names. And that's how I know the power of community. That's how I
mm,
know the power of community, Israel. People, a lot of people were moved, and not a lot of people were clear on how they could help.
mm,
So these guys were like, you know what? You sing this song, and it is our responsibility, if we can, to help it to get it to the ears of the people who need to hear it.
mm, mm,
In
mm.
2 weeks, the song was released. I never seen nothing
Wow,
like that yet. In two
wow.
weeks, video,
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. That's powerful. As you're telling me this story, community keeps coming up. Do you know, does that little girl in St. Anne's in the brownstone, did she like ever envisage something like this growing up?
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. And there's a Jamaican saying that the more you plan, the more God keeps wiping out. Because in our very limited human understanding of the world, we feel like we have it all figured out.
Mm,
And more I have to just submit myself to the bigger picture, because there's something, Israel, I am sure that I am here to do,
Mm.
like a more divine calling of sorts. And I don't want to fight against that. I want to sit into that divine fate that is destined for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I would hope that on the path that I will be able to positively affect the lives and attitudes of people around me. As a little girl, I could not imagine a million times to have even traveled to the places that I have traveled
Mm.
or see the things that I've seen. But to whom much is given, much is expected, you know?
You mentioned that. I'm like, songs like Chant Your Name show that you're taking your responsibility seriously, but you're still a human being, right? So
True.
does it get heavy sometimes? And when it does, how do you handle all that weight?
That's such a personal question, and I love to answer it. I struggle a lot with my presence. I struggle a lot, like doing podcasts and such. I'm more comfortable with what I have to say than actually sitting here in front of the camera. It's very uncomfortable for me, and
Mm.
that's how I know that maybe I'm not in it for the image part of things. The most uncomfortable part of the rising fan base and the rising attention that my team and I are getting is the fact that I have to stand at the forefront
Mm.
and I have to have my picture taken and I have to show up on social media and I have to engage.
Mm.
I don't mind talking, I don't mind singing, but it's I still struggle
Mm.
with my image. The world tells me that I have to look a certain way, and the world tells me that I have to behave a certain way.
Mm.
And it is not very aligned with the way that I think about myself. So, whenever it is that I'm trying to do music, and you look at pop culture, and then I look back at my music, and I look at back at pop culture, I can't help but feel a little disheartened because
Mm.
I don't fit that mold, Israel, and I'll be the first person to say that, you know? So that is very uncomfortable. I show up anyway, though, because I know that, as again, who much is given, much is expected. And the least I can do is show up. But that don't
Mm-hmm.
mean that I'm always comfortable doing
But you show up, right? You show up.
it.
That I think, you know what, like, that is, it's better to, like, like, I'm not sure, or you have like this the shakes or you're scared or whatever, but you still show up because this thing, this calling, this destiny, this fate is bigger than you. And the only way to get that to that place to just keep showing up. And man, you show up every time.
Thank
So
you.
man, God, time is
That's
not enough. I
okay.
have so many questions. We have to do this again. We have to do like a part 2 and 3 and 4. But here's the thing though. Um, Apart from chant the names, right?
Mhm.
How do you feel when you sing?
It's the best feeling in the world. Israel, in my little apartment here on lockdown, I sing in this apartment as if I was singing at a festival. So my neighbors must hate me by now. But the bottom line, the bottom line is I sing for myself because it's therapeutic to me. It is an
Mm,
activity that I have been doing every single day
mm,
for all my life.
mm,
So
mm.
I sing whether or not someone is listening.
Right.
Um, so if you see me on a show and you see my eyes closed and I'm probably looking away, because when I find now that I rewatch myself a lot more, I see that I close my eyes a lot, and it's for two reasons. One of them is because it takes me that back to that place where I don't feel like I am trying to impress the people before me. I'm just singing for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
also when I open my eyes, it takes me back to all those butterflies in my stomach and all those things. So I find it safer when I close my eyes like this and I just think about me and the music alone.
Mm, mm.
It is one of the best feelings in the world.
Right, right. How do you think your dad feels though, watching you what you've built?
I think he's proud of me. Yes. I am one of my dad's only kids that have toured with him. He loves my voice. He loves singing with me. Like we have our like a big part of my relationship with my dad is based on our equal love for music. So like
Yes.
when I'm hanging out with him, we will listen to one song to get to learn it for like 3, 4 hours. And other people will be like, what's wrong with these two?
It's
I want to
beautiful.
keep him proud though.
Right, right, right. So at some points, we'll
Mhm.
have the vaccine. Life will be open. Shows will
Mhm.
happen again. At some point, I can't say when, but when that happens, what do you guys have planned?
Okay, great. We are booked up until next year, February.
Wow.
So we I'll just put it there. But I'll mention a few of the shows. A bunch of them for May have been cancelled
Mm-hmm.
and postponed until June. So we'll
Yeah.
start off June with the ECMAs.
Right, 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 right.
We have a show booked at Church Brewery, whether virtual or live, based on the restrictions at the time,
Mm,
in June as well. So feel free to check the Church Brewery website for that. We have a Rolling Stone. Well, I'm going to be sitting in on a Rolling Stones tribute that's going to be happening in the city as well. So look out for that. But in terms of our
mm,
entire team, we have the Halifax Jazz Festival that's coming up. We have the Mosaic Festival that's coming up. We have the stage at St. Andrews that's coming up. So just keep an eye out. Feel free to keep an eye on my socials at Jah'Mila Sings on Instagram and Jah'Mila Music on Facebook, and you'll see all the updates.
okay, like I said, I need to have you back, but I'm gonna let you go now for this part one of our conversation. And my question is this though:
Mhm.
there's a little girl, boy watching this show right now and thinking, whatever it is inside them, whether it's singing, whether it's drawing, whatever it is not something that will take them to where they'd like to be. What would you tell that kid?
I would tell that kid that the sum is just the whole of its parts.
Ah.
The sum is just the whole of its parts. And for you to create a masterpiece or create an empire, it is all boils down to the little things you do every day. The little things, that one call you're afraid to make, or that 1 hour that you're not quite sure if you should invest or not, you know what I mean?
Mm,
Stay the course, because if you demonstrate a certain amount of focus and discipline
yeah.
and loyalty to your craft, it almost always pays off. And
Mm,
it might not pay off in fame, and it might not pay off in flashing lights and Beyonce kind of fame, but the respect that you will get from your community for knowing that you had that focus,
mm.
if it's even 10 people, will immortalize you and you live forever through your work.
Wow. Wow, Jamila, thank you. Thank you so much for showing up again. Thank you so much for chanting your name. I love that song. And
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for everything you're doing. Keeping, cause like reggae is a beautiful song. Like there's a song. I don't want to wait in vain for your love.
Love that song.
Yeah, I'm not a very like okay, I guess in public I'm not a very expressive person, but like in my house, oh my god, I can't sing for shit, but if that song comes on, I'm singing it to the top of my lungs. And you remember, like, there's a story I'm gonna share about that song. I grew up in Nigeria, and in Nigeria, we kind of just grew up with reggae music. That's just what we really had. That's kind of what we had. And growing up as a kid, all the like the stars were like reggae people, and then there was like Lucky Dubie from South Africa, and then it was that's
Yep.
all I grew up listening to, right? So, and then, grow up and everything. And for some reason, like, reggae just like wasn't in my life anymore. So one day now I'm living in South Africa in Cape Town. And
Hmm.
then a friend of mine I was living in like a residence, with some guys and stuff. And I just go in and he's listening to like a mixed CD, and then, it's different songs. And then wait in Vain comes on, like, ah, it's like I became like 8 years old again. Like every, all those things I grew up with, all those feelings, all those, man, like, and like for weeks and weeks and weeks I was just playing to that song repeat. Now the other thing about that song is that, as a kid, it's like it's just a rhythm you're listening to, that's all you're listening to. But now I'm like, in my teens, getting to my 20s, the song has a different meaning. And that's one thing I love about reggae, is like at different stages of your life it means different things, right? And like, anyway, I can go on and on. So thank you so much for saying, you know what, we don't have reggae here. I need to, like, this is my legacy. I like how you put that thing. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for coming to the sanctuary today.
Thank you so much, Israel. Thanks for having me, and keep loving reggae. Reggae loves you too.
Reggae music are the key to the soul. We reorganize how the system a go. A roots girls can give. Roots girls can kinky reggae. Some system